here are the parts of the table saw. We have our blade here with our table, and we have our fence. Our fence does move around, and on this table saw we have a ruler that is set up extremely accurately. So we should be able to set our dial here to the correct number and lock our fence so it is set for our correct size. But just to double check, you want to make sure it is set right. We want to take a known good ruler. We're going to measure from the fence to the inside edge of the blade here. We're going to check that we want it set to 1.5 inches. So we just bring our blade over and set that to 1.5 inches. A few other parts of our table saw. We can control the height of our blade with this hand wheel here. We want our blade to be sticking about 1/8 to 1/4 inch out of the top above our project here. So our project is 3/4 of an inch thick, same as our push stick. So we will set that to be about 1/4 inch taller or above our project. Other parts that we are going to be using for our table saw is we have our on-off button. Our push button here for our on-off, it pulls out to turn it on. So I'll pull this out to turn the saw on. I'll push it in to stop it. And it is at the right height, so if you lean against it, it will turn it off. If you lean against it with your leg, it'll turn it right off. Again, pull out to turn on, push in to stop. That green light must be on when you turn that on. If that green light is flashing or if the red light is flashing, there's something wrong and this saw will not turn on. Here we have the table saw set up. Remember, we have it set for 1.5 inches from our fence to that blade. We wanted to run our project through so we can get rid of that knot on this board. Not all boards have a knot like that in there, but we're going to try to cut that off. When we push our project through, we're going to use our fingers to push it tight against the fence. That way we have a consistent thickness of 1.5 inches. And we are going to use our push stick with a hook on it. That hook is going to catch the back side of your project and push it through. When you push your project through, you're going to keep your fingers pushing the project up against the fence, but you do not want to push your project right here and pinch the blade. That's how you launch projects backwards and somebody gets hurt. So always push your hand right here where the red part starts for our table insert. That's where I'm going to keep my hand. I'm not going to keep my hand moving forward. I'm just going to push it into the blade right here, and it's going to stay in that spot as I push my project through. When you push through, you want to push it all the way past the blade. Do not stop early and pull your push stick away. That's how parts get caught and get launched out of the saw. So you've got to push it all the way through. If you have on baggy sleeves, now is the time to roll them up. Get them out of the way because you will be reaching over top of the blade a little bit. Make sure you're safe. Do not stand directly behind the saw, behind the teeth, that line of cut, because that's where all the sawdust is going to come shooting back at you. And if the board gets caught here, it's going to launch straight backwards. If you're standing right behind it, it's going to come right at you and you're going to get injured. So stand off to the side, grab your push stick, push it through. Normally, if this was a bigger cut, we would put a cover over the saw here, but this is such a small cut, the cover over the blade would get in the way, so I had to remove it. So we're going to push our project tight up against the fence and hook the project with the push stick, send it through all the way past the blade. Do not have your project near that blade when you turn it on. If it catches, again, bad things happen. So you want to be safe. Keep your project away, turn the saw on, and then send it through. Here we go. Turn it on. Pushing our project up against the fence. Grab our push stick. Push with our push stick across, keeping the project tight against the fence. You don't want our hand to move forward at all. Push all the way through. Using your leg, you can push off the saw. Push that start button to push it off. Once that blade has stopped, then you can grab your pieces. If you have somebody helping you catch, they can also grab both pieces at that time. But you should not be reaching anywhere near that blade while it is running. We have our piece that is 1.5 inches thick. This is some unknown size. We want to get this to 3.5 inches. So let's set our saw up again to 3.5. Double check it. Right on. And we're going to send this one through. I have a little bit of knot here yet. That's when we try to cut off. Same as before. Push it up tight against the fence. Run it all the way past the blade. This nice little stir stick is scrap. We'll throw that in the scrap bin. Here we have our front, back, two sides, slider, and bridge. Here we are back at the bench. We're going to be laying out our projects onto our pieces here. We're going to start by laying out our front and back and our sides into the larger piece. So we're going to start by creating a rectangle. Don't worry about that notch right now. We're just going to create the rectangle that's 4.5 by 3.5. Remember, we just cut our height to 3.5 inches tall. And then down here, we're going to make our sides by cutting our projects to 2.5 inches long. Again, we already have the 3.5 inches tall. So we are looking for 4.5 inches long. This project was cut just on the bandsaw. Nothing is square on either one of these ends. So take your square, just like before, hook the base up tight against your project, you square across the blade. Sand to your line, that way you have a nice square edge, and then you'll measure off of that edge. I have this part now sanded to my line, nice and square. We're gonna measure out each piece one at a time. So first I'm gonna make my front. I'm going to measure from this square edge over 4.5 inches. Make our mark. Square it across. If you don't remember which side is the scrap side, you can put a little line to remember that's the scrap side. You're going to cut just barely on the scrap side of that line and then sand this square to that line. And then the next step, we're going to take this, square off that end. I'm going to do all of that off camera. I'm going to come back with a slightly shorter piece and my front piece cut out. Here we are back at the bench. I have my front piece cut out, squared. That one's done. The back is a carbon copy of it. So I already have this squared off this edge. All I'm going to do is take my front, lay it on top, make this edge flush. Take your pencil, scribe across, cut on the scrap side, square it up on the belt sander, and then you'll have two that should be exactly the same size. We are going to repeat that process. I have this edge squared up. I'm going to measure 2.5 inches over, scratch my line, saw it a little bit long, sand it square to my line, square up the blank, take this piece I've created, put it on top to make an exact copy, trace it, and then I should have two pieces after I saw that and square it up. Let's do that. Let's create two pieces here that are 2.5 inches long, and they should both be the exact same and square. Here we have our front, back, and our two sides. Now with our long skinny stick here, we need to create our slider, and our bridge we're going to leave as long as possible for now. This is all, again, it's all saw cut, so we square up one edge, measure our length of our slider. Our slider is 9 inches long. So after we get squared up, measure 9 inches, cut it a little bit long, sand to our line. Our slider is rough length is done. And again, leave the remainder here for our bridge. Here are all the pieces after we have them finished to their final size. But remember that bridge, we will finish that later.